'Tis I, your old pal, King Chuck. Happy Sunday fun day to you. I'm at the dog park with my executive producer, my dog. And so I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I paid a visit to what was left of 102.5, The Ride, at Rogers Plaza the other day. I actually had to go there because I had to get a shop stool at Harbor Freight. Yeah, they only sell them for like $35 there, as opposed to too much money elsewhere. My dad had a friend who got a shop stool from there. Pretty easy to put together. So anyway, I visited. So while I was at Rogers, I went to the Ride, or what was left of it. I took a couple of pictures of the darkened studio. I gave them to my good friend Darren Gibson. Of course, Darren worked at WPRR Radio back when it was Public Reality Radio, and the place was hollowed out. Yeah, well, it wasn't hollowed out. The control console was still there. Here's the funny thing. There's a couple of creepy puppets at the front window of the studio in the mall. And I'm like, what the fuck here? Oh, man. So, anyway, I just got out of my vehicle. I had it on 102.5 for shits and giggles, and it was actually WIOG out of Bay City, which is that market's top 40 station. They were carrying the Carson Daly weekly countdown show. Carson Daly, of course, you might remember him from MTV, Total Request Live, and now he had a show on NBC for a while. That was at 1:30 in the morning, and then now he's on the Today Show. I would never think in my life that I would say that I would rather listen to Carson Daly than anyone else, and that was Tyrone. And I'm like, man, and the same goes with Grand Rapids. Nobody likes the guy. And he's the most egotistical, one of them, this market is just chock-loaded with egomaniacal radio people. You got him, you got Bill Simonson. I've met a lot of people in this market who were the same way, and he deserved to lose that station, and I hope he slaps a for sale sign on it. And I talked to Darren, and he says that he and Jack Prince, one of his former co-hosts on Southpaws, they really wish they had the money to buy the station and return it back to its former glory, but they don't have that kind of money. Anyway, it is what it is, folks. If Public Reality Radio returned to the airwaves in Grand Rapids, I would definitely support them. Maybe even more than the last time. Anyway. So let's get back. Oh, I got a plane over me. I love being in the flight path of Ford Airport here in town. Anyway, we got to talk about Trump. As we all know, Trump had another assassination attempt last night. As we all know by now, if you haven't watched the news, there was the big correspondents' dinner last night at the Washington Hilton, and as Trump and his people were taking the dais, somebody outside of the lobby started opening fire, He was rushing towards the ballroom, and Secret Service took him down. Trump and wife Melania were escorted out of the building. And, anyway, the man was caught. He is in custody. He's a 31-year-old man from California. He was a former school teacher and tutor. And the story was, now that we don't know what the motive was, unfortunately. But I can tell you this right now. Trump has had 2 assassination attempts in recent years, 2 more. One at Mar-a-Lago, the other at Butler, Pennsylvania, and both shooters were actually Trump supporters. And I would imagine that Trump's bullshit got him into this situation because, every time he opens his mouth, he talks about things that are, what's amazing is this event was supposed to be supported, about the First Amendment. And yet the shit that comes out of that man's mouth is, in my opinion, pure slander to America. I mean, and, he's the most narcissistic president of all time. And while he was, talking to reporters after the assassination attempt at the White House, he actually said, "This is why we need to build a ballroom at the White House." Folks, I've said this once and I'll say it again. The reason why people get shot is because they say stupid shit. Charlie Kirk did the same thing last year. And it's like now the right wing is trying real hard to make him their version of Martin Luther King. And I got news for you, folks. He ain't Dr. King. He ain't anywhere near Dr. King. Charlie Kirk was a racist. He was a homophobe. He was an overall disgusting human being who used the Bible to attack normal, marginalized people. That was his MO. He only liked white people, white Christian people. I'll bet you that if he looked at me on the street, he'd walk the other way. Because maybe he, in his mind, big fat autistic guy, whoop-de-doo. Yeah, he can go fuck. I'll tell you something. I could say he can go fuck himself, but you can't do that because, well, he's dead. And, as for Trump, what's funny is, this event was supposed to be about the First Amendment. And yet this guy is trying real hard, or at least tried real hard, to get Jimmy Kimmel off the air. He succeeded in getting Stephen Colbert off the air. He's off the air in a few weeks, unfortunately. Unfortunately, his show has been given to one of the biggest scumbags in broadcasting, Byron Allen, who paid a lot of money to broker his old time slot from CBS. And, that's the way it is. And now the folks who own CBS, they're buying Paramount. They're buying Warner Brothers. And here's my question. What are they going to do next? By the way, Warner Brothers, they own Mad Magazine. I purchased the latest issue of Mad the other day. They did a tribute to Stephen Colbert in that month's issue. And I'm thinking to myself, Mad has never really picked sides politically. They call it as it is. They've picked on the Republicans. They've picked on the Democrats. And it's 74 years of publication. You know, they don't give a flying fuck who you are. If you do stupid shit, you get lampooned. And it wasn't just Mad. You know, the sad truth is, you know, there were multiple humor magazines over the years. You had Cracked was the big one. And then there was a magazine called Sick. It was actually published by Stan Lee. I've actually looked at old issues of Sick online. And many of their artists ended up going to either Cracked or Mad after it folded in 1983. You had, believe it or not, there was even a magazine called, surprise, surprise, Trump. And it was actually published by Hugh Hefner. He actually got Harvey Kurtzman to work for the magazine. Harvey Kurtzman, of course, was one of the founders of Mad. But here's the thing. And I kind of hope that nobody from, you know, the Ellison family is not listening to me. Mad is kind of on the lower end of the totem pole at Warner Brothers. It's the only magazine they publish through their DC Comics division. I mean, they sold off People and Time and Sports Illustrated and the other magazines. And unfortunately, you know, you can only buy Mad at a comic book store these days, because that's how they kind of programmed the magazine. So, anyway, so all I can say about that is Mad. I mean, I do fear that this merger is going to be very hurtful, of course, to CNN also. That's Trump's dream. He wants CNN to go away. He only wants pro-Trump media. And he will work harder than hell to get himself another term in the White House. He's narcissistic. He thinks that his approval ratings are high. No, they're not. They're in the low to mid 30s. You know, gas prices, you know, they did shot back up to $3.99 a gallon the other day. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Americans are struggling to make ends meet. And yet this a-hole, he keeps telling me and you that nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. Speaking, and by the way, here's something else to think about that really bothers me. So, iHeartMedia, that's the company formerly known as Clear Channel, just the other day announced that now they're in merger talks with SiriusXM. And this is news that should bother some people. You know, we're recording on Sunday. I don't know what Howard will say about this on his show on Monday, if at all. So here's the story. So the radio industry is dying. It has been for years. And one of the factors, obviously, is the fact that more and more people are leaving terrestrial radio and going to satellite and streaming. People, you know, I remembered radio when I was a kid in northern Michigan. I used to go to Detroit as a kid, not to, you know, basically to listen to the radio because it was so bad in northern Michigan. It was like there was nothing for teenage guys to listen to. It was either country or classic rock or oldies or adult contemporary. You know, basically radio in northern Michigan was for the lowest common denominator, and I hated it. And you know, basically you had to have less than 5 teeth to enjoy northern Michigan radio. So what happened was I was, you know, when I moved to Grand Rapids, I was so happy that I had a radio station, WKLQ, that had the Howard Stern Show. They were the kick-ass rock station that, the elitists of Grand Rapids absolutely hated. That station spoke miles to me. And guess what happened? This asshole, Matt Hanlon, came in and totally destroyed it. He got rid of Howard Stern. He demoted him to an AM station. He hired a new programming director who dicked around with the format. Decided to add a lot of 80s butt rock to the playlist. And I only knew of one guy who actually loved the station. And he was a co-worker of mine, and he was a dumbass. Yeah, and it's like, why do radio people look at these people as their audience? What about intelligent people who love rock and roll, who actually, love kick-ass hard rock music? That's the problem, folks. This is why I started this website. This is why I started Chuck69.com back in 1999. I was, and what's sad is that Terry Ray and KLT, they're number one in the ratings up in northern Michigan. And I'll tell you why they're number one. It's because northern Michigan, the demographics in northern Michigan, part of it's because the demographics in northern Michigan have really changed since I left town years ago. And what had happened was it became older. And old people love butt rock. That's their generation's music. And meanwhile, people of my generation, they're lucky to get a job. But, iHeartMedia single-handedly did a good job of destroying radio. You have to remember something, folks, that these assholes were the ones who, years ago they had Air America, they had on a bunch of their stations Air America. Air America was a left-wing radio network. And they were supposed to go up against Limbaugh and Hannity, and believe it or not, Clear Channel did put this format on a few of their on at least one 50,000 watt station. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say it's WCKY out of Cincinnati. But here's what happened. A couple of things did happen, and they were not friendly. Rush Limbaugh, who of course was one of Clear Channel's big stars, he actually said that he would never work for a company that embraced left-wing talk radio. And, this Air America was a left-wing talk network. And, they carried a bunch of hosts, including, they carried I think they had Stephanie Miller. At one time, Jerry Springer had a show on there. Jerry Springer for years was criticized because of the fact that his show was a bit on the crazy side. And it really wasn't Jerry. It was really his producer, Richard Dominic. And Dominic had a bunch of producers under him who wanted the show just to be crazy, But hey, it had good ratings, right? But Jerry, he was a proud Democrat. Unfortunately, he wasn't a total leftist. He unfortunately supported Hillary Clinton in 2016 and not Bernie Sanders. I wish he supported Bernie, but at least he didn't support Trump. He actually said a good thing about Trump. He said that Donald Trump does not belong in the White House. He belongs on my show. And I second that. Anyway, this is what happened to Air America. So Mitt Romney and his company, Bain Capital, became one of the new owners of iHeartMedia. They bought multiple shares of the company years ago. And one of the things they decided to do was to get rid of Air America on all their stations. And Air America was forced to move to lesser stations in the market and stations that had a lousy signal, daytime only stations, you name it. That's what killed it. And people were like, and it allowed the left to cry, oh, nobody likes commie liberal radio. Rush Limbaugh rules, man. The only positive thing I can say about Limbaugh is he's dead. He died he died of his stupidity. He was a heavy smoker. Died of lung cancer. I mean, he was always seen with a big fat cigar in his mouth. And, let's remember what happened, too, with iHeartMedia. They screwed over Howard Stern. When in 2000, they had a couple of Stern affiliates, including Miami and trying to remember what market Stern was on in all those markets. I know Miami was one of them. Big 106 was the station. They dropped Stern with a snap of a finger, and I don't have a free hand right now because I'm holding my cell phone, which I'm talking into, and of course I'm holding my dog's leash. They canned him because of the Janet Jackson nip slip. And all of a sudden, the FCC began their anti-American witch hunt to stop, quote-unquote, indecency. They were not out there to protect children from guns and mass shootings. No, that's how the right wing thinks. They think that pornography and boobs are going to hurt children. They don't. You see, folks, Howard has said for years that iHeartMedia owes him millions, and I believe that. And, for years I would never support iHeartMedia's businesses. I mean, I would never listen to an iHeart station. I would never listen to any of their shows unless I was out there to criticize them. And let's remember something. When Rush Limbaugh many years ago on his program attacked a woman because she was out there to protect contraceptives as a part of the American Care Act, ACA, Limbaugh called her a slut. And what was pathetic was only like 3 radio stations dumped his show. But yet when Howard Stern was just doing what he was doing, a lot more stations dumped him. The point is, folks, is that now iHeartMedia is looking at SiriusXM and looking to merge with them. And my take is, if this happens, I'm wondering if they're going to try to weasel him out, which is a bit scary. But Howard has said on his show multiple times, look, he's 72 years old. His current contract allows him to work sporadically, more sporadically than ever before, just 2 days a week and lots of vacation time. I mean, he's well off financially. He's worth an estimated $650 million. He has 2 huge mansions in Florida and the Hamptons. He's good. He's doing okay. He's not hurting. He's got Beth and her animal, little kitty cat sanctuary. I mean, that's what he likes to do. He's playing the guitar, learning to play the guitar. He likes doing that. And hell, he's a damn good artist. I mean, have you seen some of his artwork? It's phenomenal. the point is, folks, is, this is also the same company that during 9/11 released a list of songs they didn't want their programming directors to play. They urged their radio stations to not play bands like Rage Against the Machine or Smooth Criminal they didn't say Michael Jackson. They said Alien Ant Farm, their version of the song. That's what they wanted. This is a company that cares more about the almighty dollar than they care about money. I mean, they care about the almighty dollar than people. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, something just went over my head for a second. Lost all concentration. But anyway, come. That's what it boils down to, folks. That's what it all boils down to. And what's pathetic is they own a bunch of radio stations in Grand Rapids and Detroit, and they're just basically in the business of making money. And they're not making a lot of it because more and more people are abandoning radio and just simply listening to streaming. They go to Spotify. And I'll be honest with you, I love Spotify. I mean, there's that part of me that says maybe I'll join Spotify one day, full time, instead of just, listening to the free version, which, it's like after 15 minutes of music, they will play a couple of commercials. So we'll think. So anyway, something to think about. This is a developing story, and maybe the merger will happen, maybe it won't. So who knows? So I've been wanting to tell you this story. So many years ago, when I first moved to Grand Rapids, one of the advantages of moving to Grand Rapids was I lived down the street from a shopping mall, Woodland. When I was a kid, Grand Traverse Mall was the place to be. But guess what? My parents made it so I didn't go there often because it was not very close to us. It was like 30 minutes away from here, from where I lived. As a matter of fact, there wasn't really much for my type of people to do. It's like my mom she actually worked down the street from Grand Traverse Mall. And she said that the only time would ever take me there, was if I had a good report card. My parents really raised the bar on me because they had no money, I mean, they were spending more money on their cigarettes than they did on me. So, anyway, that's what, they didn't want me to wear nice clothes. They wanted me to wear Kmart shit. I was bullied at school because of that. I had low self-esteem, Anyway, so the rest of the story was my mom. So now I moved to Grand Rapids. I got an apartment. And guess where I lived? Down the street from Woodland Mall. I was happy. And Woodland, So the story was Woodland in the early 2000s, they were going neck and neck against the other new, the brand new Rivertown Crossings. Rivertown was the hip mall now, and Woodland was, kind of dying at that point. Although now everything changed. And the reason why was because Woodland was sold to Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust, and so did Rivertown. But it was the way the mall, the two malls were managed, if you put two and two together. So here's my story. So I was at Woodland I would say about 20 years ago. And what happened was I was at the Marshall Fields wing of the mall. Marshall Fields, of course, used to be Hudson's, and now it's Macy's. And from out of nowhere, from a kiosk, a woman said to me, "Hey, sir, let me look at your hands." And I was like, okay. So let me tell you about my hands. My mom and I have my mother's hands. My mom's hands are dry. Drier than a reptile's. And she passed down her dry skin to me. So now what happened was I had dry hands, and this woman, she had this salt scrub solution, and she started rubbing it on my hands, and then she dipped my hands into a lotion, and now they were as slippery as a seal. And then she said to me, "I have a good deal for you today. I'll give you the salt scrub and the lotion. They're $50 each. And I'll knock down the price for you." So I don't remember the full details. It was years ago. But anyway, so reluctantly, I bought this garbage. I wasn't happy, but I did it. And I only used it sometimes because, unfortunately, another reason why I have dry hands is because I work in a factory where I handle raw paper. And unfortunately, the paper just sucks up all the oils of my skin. So in the wintertime, when things get all dry outside, my hands, I develop cracks around my nails. And they hurt like hell. So I even put lotion, I put the salt scrub on that. And it hurt like hell, putting salt in a wound. But here's what else happened. I went to Meijer. Turns out they sell the same shit for like $10, not even $10. So it was a ripoff. So, needless to say, this shit was sitting on my shelf for a long time. It was a white elephant. Then what happened was, sometime later, I went back to the mall, and there was a man and a woman, same kiosk. "Sir, let me look at your hands. I want to..." And I told them, "I already got this shit at home. Not today." "Oh, sir." Oh, sorry. Sorry. So what happened was this. So anyway, the rest of the story was, I'm like, "I already have this shit at home." "Oh, sir, you need more. Look at your hands. They're dry. Look at this." And they did another salt and lotion demo on me. Oy vey. And I'm not even Jewish. And so then they started. Then I said, "Okay, I got this shit at home. I don't need more." "Sir, you're my customer." Okay, so now I'm being gaslit into thinking that now they own me. And they own what little I actually have in my wallet or space on my credit card. Which is more about space on the credit card, because I was getting paid a shit wage as it was. So this is what happens. I reluctantly pulled a Fry from Futurama and told him, "Shut up and take my money." So now here I am walking around with the mall with a bag of their shit with the kiosk's name on it. I walked down the JCPenney wing, and another person said, "Oh, you bought? Oh, you went to Premier? Oh, we got a special deal for Premier customers." Oh my God! And I think I purchased like a black, what is it? Blackhead scrub, because they noticed I had blackheads on my nose. Oh my God. More money down the tubes that I did not have. So now I had more charges on my credit card because of these assholes. So I talked with family and friends about them, and they said, yeah. And my aunt actually told me that she took my grandmother into a shopping mall, and these same people pulled the same shit on her. They actually took her hand while she was, in a wheelchair. Of course, my grandmother had trouble walking at that point, and they were so angry at these people. So here's the story. So apparently, anyway, the business had a weird name, Premier by Dead Sea Premier. And what happened was eventually, so this is what they did. They had a tactic, and that tactic was to have not one, but two kiosks in a mall, one that said Premier, the other not, because in a lot of shopping malls, they prohibit, having two of the same store. Like, you can't have two Victoria's Secrets or two Hot Topics or two Foot Lockers, although they find their ways around the edict. So, true story. When I was a kid growing up in northern Michigan, Foot Locker had not one, but two stores in my childhood mall of Grand Traverse Mall. Foot Locker 1 was a regular Foot Locker located by JCPenney, and Foot Locker number 2 was another business called Athletic Express. And it turns out that Athletic Express was a DBA of Foot Lockers. And they had Foot Locker signs in the store, and they sold the same kinds of shoes and whatnot. My mother, I told you earlier, my mother was strict about what shoes she bought for me. She did not want me to buy, she did not want me to conform to the popular kids. She wanted me to live on a budget and have the popular kids bully me while everyone else didn't want to be my friend except for the white trash that went to the school, people with great teeth and were into country music. Those were the people my parents were trying to get me to be friends with. I did not like them. I mean, I hate country music with a passion. As a matter of fact, I wanted to do this podcast yesterday, but I could not, because here's the thing. I'm standing in front of a baseball diamond at the park, and they're having this Christian college baseball challenge every weekend. And unfortunately, yesterday, they had shitty ass country music playing at full blast. And it's like, if I have copyrighted materials on this podcast, I lose money, potential money. And, I don't get many views or hits or likes or whatever as it is. And the last thing I need is to have some redneck getting all the money that I work hard for. Yeah, it's like, what's funny was one of the songs was about drinking too. And I'm like, Yeah, how Christian of you. Sounds about getting drunk. Oh, we can't have rock and roll, that heavy metal, that's the devil's music. Ugh. Yeah, sorry. I know country music is very popular now, but it gets far more attention than rock music does. But you know what? That's what happens when you got big corporations telling you what you can and can't listen to. Anyway, moving forward. So the rest of the story was that, so that's what they did. I guess one business ran as Premier by Dead Sea Premier, and the other business, was probably run by, a relative. And they were like, yeah, we're not the same people. And they were, So anyway, Dead Sea Premier by Dead Sea Premier, what the fuck they're called, they actually built a brick and mortar store in Woodland Mall. It was there for a couple of years. They had, every time I walked by, some weird ass gray haired lady would stand in front of, who looked like she had blonde hair, would stand in front of the entrance looking for victims, their next victim. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near there. I never bought anything from Dead Sea Premier after those incidents. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have dry skin. I have blackheads. I occasionally get zits in weird spots in my body. I mean, that's the way my life has always been. I mean, it's my skin, and I try my best to take care of it. I wear lotions. I bought a big vat of O'Keeffe's from Meijer recently, and that stuff is good. O'Keeffe's is a good product. It's not, and it's like for one economy size container of this stuff, it's like $16. And it lasts a long time. You just need a small dab on your hands. You don't need a $50, $100 salt scrub. It's like, I'm not a metrosexual. I mean, if you ever looked at me, I'm not even one. I am not one. Why should I have to buy that kind of shit? If I see a zit on my body, presto, I just pop the zit. I just take two fingers, gone. That's how I take care of the zits on my body. I don't put lotions all over my skin. I use a body wash in the shower. I mean, we're men. We're supposed to sweat. We're supposed to stink. It's human nature. And yes, I do wear deodorant. I take showers. I do the best I can to keep my hygiene up, like most normal people should. I brush my teeth twice a day and floss. My father had a root canal last week. It was not fun. Yeah, and that root canal was like $1,500 for him. Anyway, so Dead Sea Premier had a store at Woodland Mall. And what happened was a few years later, they went out of business. So here's the reason why Dead Sea Premier closed their store at Woodland Mall. It was not because they wanted to. It was because they had to. And the reason why they had to was because so it turns out they had a masseuse there who gave massages. And there was a woman there who got a massage by that guy. And what happened was, she was topless. She was laying on her chest, back exposed. And then the guy said, this stuff works on your breasts. And reluctantly, the woman got up. He massaged her breasts. He was basically pressuring her to have sex with him. She had enough. No meant no for her. She filed a complaint with the police department, with the sheriff's department. The sheriff went to the mall, and the mall said, okay, we heard enough. You're gone. Dead Sea Premier, gone. And, let me tell you about Woodland Mall. Woodland Mall has over 90% capacity. Okay? They are 90% full. It is a mall that if there's any mall retailer out there, it is their dream to have a store there. And, there were some retailers that left Woodland years ago, and they came back. They got back Garage, which is a Canadian women's store. They got back Abercrombie and Fitch, Aeropostale. They got those stores back because, a couple of years ago, many years ago, Woodland was kind of on the way out because of Rivertown. But guess what happened? It was the other way around with Rivertown. So the story goes like this. Rivertown Crossings, Grand Rapids has 3 malls. You got Woodland, which is owned by the Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust. Come. Yeah, my dog is trying to drag me to the school. Not today. You got Rivertown Crossings, which was started by a company called General Growth Properties. They also owned Grand Traverse Mall in Traverse City. And then now you got a Rogers Plaza. Rogers is owned by a firm called Spiegel. Rogers Plaza is a shithole. And they do have a few anchors, but mostly they do not have mall entrances. Yeah, the only the stores I consider to be anchors to Rogers Plaza are Ross Dress for Less and Ollie's Bargain Outlet. Yeah, not your normal mall fare, and none of these stores have mall access. Yeah, there's only a handful of businesses that have mall access to Rogers Plaza. It is a shithole. In the actual mall itself, you got a Mexican restaurant. They had a Chinese restaurant. The Chinese restaurant, by the way, used to be a Big Boy, but they recently closed. You have a black barber shop. You got a little snack shop, the Secretary of State, the post office, a cheap ass auto insurance company, and a store that sells rugs called Janine's. And that's pretty much it for the entire mall. Oh yeah, Jerseys for Jesus, which is a black clothing store. A black Christian clothing store, I should say. Planes are going up and down Ford Airport today. Anyway. So here's the story. Rogers Plaza, it's like, I don't know, yeah, one store that just closed. You guessed it. 102.5 The Ride. Yeah. Oh yeah, let's not forget B2 Outlet, which is a kind of like Goodwill, a used clothing store. So that's pretty much the client list of Rogers Plaza right there. A lot of outdoor businesses like Jet's Pizza and Harbor Freight Tools and there's even a health clinic for senior citizens. Yeah, I remembered my mother taking her boyfriend there because she suspected that he had Alzheimer's or dementia. Yeah, Oak Street, that's their name. And they didn't have a caseworker there who would work with him. And it's like, healthcare in America is such a joke. Yeah, it's like you have to go see a ton of doctors just to get a diagnosis. What a ripoff. So, anyway, let's get back to the rest of the story here. So what happened? So then you got Rogers Plaza. You got Rogers Plaza. You got Woodland, and you got Rivertown Crossings. So here's what happened. When I moved to Grand Rapids, Rivertown was owned by GGP. Woodland was owned by a family from Detroit that owned a ton of shopping malls and developed them as well. They have long since gone out of business. And the name of that family has escaped me, tragically and unfortunately. Let me try to get the name of the property company before. Taubman. There we go. So you have Taubman. Taubman still owned Woodland Mall. And GGP still owned Rivertown. So here's what happened. Taubman sold to Preet, the Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust, around 2005, 2006 or so. And Preet decided the mall needed a new fresh coat of paint. They built a brand new 14-screen movie theater that for a while was run by Cinemark. Then it became a Celebration Cinema. Celebration, the story was the cinema was too close to, the story with that mall, the cinema, was that it was too close to the other Celebration Cinema up on the Beltline. So they made it into a second run house and never made money. So they ended up giving the lease over to Phoenix Theaters out of Detroit. And Phoenix really upgraded the theater. So they really did, the Lord's work with that one. So here's the rest of the story. So what happened was, over the, of course, then Sears closed at Woodland. They redeveloped as a Von Maur, which is a high-end department store. A lot of high-end tenants came into the mall, and it's done very well. They put over $100 million into the renovations of the mall. It's 90% full. It's almost unheard of these days in the world of shopping malls. I mean, these days, here in Michigan, most malls are probably about 60% full, and less, and it's getting worse. And I'll tell you why in a second. So, but anyway, they just recently opened up a brand new bowling alley there called Main Event. It's actually owned by Dave & Buster's. Dave & Buster's is just up the street. So what happened was, Woodland Mall is doing good. You walk, at times it's a bitch to even get a good parking spot there. And I know, that's another problem. There's not a lot of good parking there, unfortunately, because they put the theater and all these new restaurants like Red Robin and On the Border. They put them in good parking spots, which is why sometimes I park in the back of the mall right by JCPenney. So anyway, here's the rest of the story. So Woodland Mall is doing good. Nothing to worry about for them. Preet has done a phenomenal job of running that place. Come. Sorry, my dog is wandering into places she shouldn't be going to. Yeah, like in the middle of a drive here. Yeah, the last thing I want to see is a car coming to ram us over. So this is what happened. But meanwhile, Rivertown, their fortunes became shit. Well, let's see here. General Growth Properties went bankrupt. So they ended up spinning off some of their lesser popular malls, profitable malls, to a firm called, a new company called Rouse Properties. But General Growth Properties was able to keep Rivertown. And Rivertown's fortunes really took a nosedive in the mid-2010s. When first it was Yonkers and then Sears both went bankrupt and out of business. And one by one, a lot of the higher end stores in the mall either closed and went to Woodland. Pottery Barn went to Woodland. Garage went to Woodland. White House Black Market, which is a high-end women's chain, went there. And the reason why is because Woodland is a very well-run mall. And so what happened was Brookfield Properties eventually purchased GGP and Rouse. And immediately they realized that what they did was a huge mistake, especially here in Michigan. So they started spinning off mall after mall. The last 3 malls they sold off here in Michigan. So the story was, one mall was in Southland Center in Taylor, which is in the southern portion of Detroit. And that got spun off. And so this company called Pogue, P-O-A-G, based out of Tennessee, bought Rivertown. And Rivertown right now ain't doing so hot. Because now they've just lost Macy's. Grand Rapids is down to 1 Macy's, and it's at Woodland. And then what happened was, so anyway, now the only good news about that's going on at Rivertown is that half of the former Yonkers has a new tenant, and it's a one of those trampoline places for kids. One of the floors of Yonkers is now a trampoline place. Come. My dog loves to make trouble, doesn't she? Well, anyway, so Woodland ended up. So the rest of the story was that Rivertown ended up. So anyway, Pogue almost immediately announced that they were going to put $1 million of renovations, especially to the troubling parking lot, the upper deck parking lot of the mall. So the story was that Rivertown was built on a swamp. Dumb idea. So now the parking lot, the upper deck parking lot, is falling apart, and that's a big turnoff for a lot of people. I remember driving on that fucking thing, and it was like my stomach would just bounce up and down, up and down, up and down. It was a horrible parking lot. Well, last I heard, they tore it down, and I guess they rebuilt it. I haven't been to that mall in 4 years, and I told you the reason why. It was because I had a confrontation with a security guard who accused me of putting a camera underneath a girl's skirts. I would never do that. That's another problem. And not only that, last Christmas, the same security guards attacked a man with Down syndrome who dressed like an elf, and they kicked him out of the mall. Anyway, I get so angry thinking about that moment. This is why I love Woodland so much. So here's the story. So now Brookfield was down to one mall left in Michigan. Grand Traverse Mall in Traverse City. And they finally sold it. And they sold it to a company called Namdar. And guess where Namdar gets a lot of their financing, folks? The Israeli government. That's right. The same folks who brought us this stupid war that is now costing us taxpayers a shit ton of money. The reason why gas is now $4 a gallon. And yet our idiot president was going around and telling us that gas was going to go down to 99 cents or $1.98, whatever the fuck it was, as soon as he became president. Yeah. And the reason why was because the Republicans control our media. You got all these right-wingers who cry and complain that Biden was an evil president and not a Christian president. And I got news for you. Biden goes to church on Sunday. Trump does not. I mean, and the type of religion that Trump subscribes to pretty much are the same assholes you see on TBN. They're all crooks. They want money. They pray after the same people who give their love and attention to Trump. Because in their mind, they think that Donald Trump is Jesus and he's not. The reality, folks, so here's the thing. Namdar, so what happened was when Brookfield was buying up malls left and right from GGP and Rouse, the first malls in Michigan they sold off included so here's a list of malls they sold off. They sold off the Crossroads in Portage by Kalamazoo. They sold off the malls in Lansing and Jackson that they had. Lansing Mall and the mall in Jackson. And the mall in Port Huron. And they sold the mall to a man named Mike Cohan. As it turns out, Mike Cohan and Namdar is believed to be the same company because they are both co-located in Great Neck, New York. Cohan also owns a shopping mall in Marquette, up in the UP. It's the only major mall, Westwood Mall in Marquette. So here's the story. WLUC, Channel 6 in Marquette, which is the big TV station in the UP, the NBC affiliate up there. They did an expose story on Cohan. And they talked about the fact that the mall is very poorly managed. They talk about the fact that Kohan is way behind on his taxes. They talk about the fact that Kohan is not regularly paying the electricity bill, the power bill, sewer, water, you name it. And the mall's tenants have to go out of business for once a month. And they get pissed off about it. And the reason why is because when the mall's power goes out, then it's bad for them. It's companies like Kohan and Namdar, they charge their tenants very low rent, in part because they don't manage their malls very well. They intentionally turn their malls into unattractive properties. Now, the good news is Kohan has sold some of his malls to another company called Summit Properties. And it turns out that guess where Summit Properties is based? You guessed it, Israel. They have a USA branch. And unfortunately, it's like, that's right. If you go to a lot of shopping malls here in America now, you're supporting Israel. And it sucks. It's like all these people are working together to create a system that's not good for us Americans, not good for me, not good for you. And me and you, we end up paying the price. I get angry knowing how much money we're spending every day on this stupid war. And yet Trump stands up and cries that we need to, because of what happened to him last night. We need that ballroom. We need the ballroom at the White House. Tell those Democrats, quit supporting woke and support my ballroom. What are you talking about? This is why Trump is the worst fucking president in my lifetime. He ain't getting shit done. We're spending more and getting less. And it's only going to get worse if you find... Folks, you have to realize something. You don't vote, once every other year. You vote every day with your money. And you need to realize that every business you spend your money at, you are voting. Because a lot of these companies, because of the free market enterprise we have, you have to remember. Like for an example, there's companies out there that support Israel. And these companies, some of these companies don't pay their workers jack shit. Microsoft and Apple and even some celebrities too, like David Draymond from Disturbed. David supports Israel. He signed several missiles that were dropped on Gaza. And now because of this, every time I listen to Sirius and I see Disturbed listed on the display, I switch channel. I will no longer support that band, even though David tried to say, I support Gaza. Okay. You can't support Gaza and Israel at the same time. Sorry, not sorry. It's like you saying that you love both Trump and Kamala Harris. I'll be like, okay, so who did you vote for? And if you voted for Trump, you're a part of that problem. In closing, and I know I rambled for a long time. Yeah, it's been, let me check the timer here. Hour 10 minutes. Damn. Well, it's Sunday. So let me tell you what happened. This past week, my dad's aunt died. She was 95. She actually died on her birthday. I think she died at the age of 95. She had been in very poor health for quite some time. It was because of that side of the family. I grew up in northern Michigan. My parents were from Detroit. They lived in a small, what was it? It was one of those multi-unit homes. And their neighbors were loud black people. Like a biplex or something like that. So what happened was they lived in downtown Detroit. They absolutely hated where they lived. And they were both unemployed. So my dad's cousin, with a trailer attached to his truck, brought it down to Detroit, told my mom and dad, load her up, and they moved to northern Michigan. And, growing up in northern Michigan, I was mostly around, my parents were probably upset that Detroit had become too black for them. And they really wanted to live in a place where there were a lot of white folks. I mean, my mom grew up around the 67 riots. And what happened was my mom, so the sad story was I didn't have much exposure to black people growing up as a result. I mean, there were some Hispanics and a lot of Native Americans. There were some brown-skinned people, but not much. And, when I was a kid growing up, black people were not marginalized. I was, because of my autism. And I was constantly bullied, and I didn't have many friends. My dad pressured me to go out and hang out with people, and I really wanted to tell him, it's your fault that I am who I am. Because they took the cheap route in raising me. I mean, when Biden was still president, and this did not make heavy news, but scientists proved that there was a link between homemade infant formula and autism. My mother gave me that growing up. And my parents fought long and hard to beat the autism out of me, and they couldn't. I was who I was. I mean, I did well. I mean, I did well in school for what it was worth, but I didn't have that many friends because of them. Because kids at school found ways to bully me and hurt me and punish me. And unfortunately, it was because my dad's cousin, and how he was raised, and how he pushed his bullshit onto my parents. One of the saddest stories about my childhood was I really wanted as a kid to go to Joe Louis Arena. I wanted to see the Red Wings live and in the flesh. And I never got to do it because of my dad. Instead, he would tell me the story about my dad's cousin, about his cousin. And the story was long time ago, he went to a Farmer Jack grocery store in Detroit. Remember Farmer Jack if you live in Detroit? So what happened was Farmer Jack was a popular grocery store in Detroit. And my dad's cousin went there. He got out with a sack of groceries and he went to his truck, and there was a gang of black kids sitting around the truck. He politely asked the kids, "Please get off my truck." One of the kids said, "Sure, if you give me your Coke." He asked again. One of the kids brought a gun and shot him several times. So this is what happens. Next time, so anyway, after he was shot, he went to the hospital. He survived. Went back to the same grocery store, same group of black kids sat around the truck. So this is what happens. He takes out a gun of his own, and he starts shooting at the kids. And at the same time, cops showed up. Now, he was arrested for attempted murder, and he ended up going to jail for several years. All because of his upbringing. So anyway, he now lives in a small town way out in the middle of nowhere, Michigan. Harrison, by the way. And he went to my aunt's wake a few years ago when she died. And while he was there, he unleashed one of the most unfortunate barrage of stupidity that I ever heard in my life. He was one of those guys who said, "Well, I hear them say that word all the time on Comedy Central and HBO. How come I can't say it?" Well, here's the reason why. It's because you're not woke like I am. You don't understand the history of slavery in America. You don't understand why black people were so marginalized for so long. And that even today, there's people who look at black people and their attitude is, that these people are by default very evil. So I talked about it with my mother, and she said, well, the reason why he is who he is because she told me. So the story was my dad's cousin, the one who got shot at by black kids and now hates black people as a result. He was raised by my great aunt and great uncle, who, by the way, were also farmers. They owned a cherry orchard in northern Michigan. And not only that, a lot of farmers in northern Michigan are racist. Some of you in northern Michigan might know of the Frisky family up in Atwood. The Friskies, Friske. Richard Frisky, the family patriarch, was a former state rep, a U.S. rep, I think he was, actually, back in the early 70s. He was extremely racist. He was anti-sex ed. He was a segregationist. And tragically, he was extremely popular. And guess what happened? He only lasted one term. His son, Cornelius, what a dumb name. Well, he went by Neil. But so the rest of the story was, of course, he basically preached the same shit his dad preached. And guess what happened? He ended up getting kicked out of office due to the fact that he invited a stripper into his home and he tried to kill her. The point is, folks, is that, these family values Republicans are not filled with family values. It's family values until, they are caught with a stripper or caught with child porn or caught, cheating on their spouse. Yeah, it just goes on and on. And not only that, going back to Richard Frisky, surprise, surprise, he was from Germany. And guess what he did during World War II? He fought with the Nazis. No wonder why he was so conservative. And tragically, it's the same shit with my dad's aunt and uncle. They raised my dad's cousin to be a racist. They raised him to look at brown-skinned people as inferior. My dad's cousin, their son, married a woman who was part Mexican. And guess what happened to her? Guess what happened to her grandchild? So the story was, my great aunt had a huge, I don't know what happened, but she actually told her granddaughter that she was low class. Why? It was because she always looked at brown-skinned people as stupid and classless. And tragically, that's the way life is in northern Michigan. I mean, I grew up, right around these people. There was a restaurant in Elk Rapids where I grew up. Back in the 1960s, they had minstrel shows with blackface. They okayed it because that's how people were in northern Michigan. They were outlandishly racist. They were on the wrong side of history. And it shames me that I grew up there. And I know Grand Rapids is far from perfect. Always has been. No town is perfect. But because of his upbringing, my dad's cousin, the one who killed these black people, this is what a normal person should have done. He should have gotten back into the store and, tried to find a payphone and called the cops on them. That's what a normal person should have done instead of confronting them face to face and, because this is what happened. Because now he's a total loser. And here's the other problem. My biggest fear is that my dad will pressure me into going to my great aunt's funeral. And I will have to hear the same bullshit racism from these people because she was my grandfather's sister. And, there were a lot of people. There weren't many good tributes to her online, thankfully, because we all knew she was a racist. She was self-centered. And, my dad even called her the old witch on the hill because she lived on a hill with her husband. And even he didn't get along with her husband, even though it was her husband who got my dad several jobs. That's what it was. You see, folks, the problem is, but you know what? I'm going to share with you in closing, because I've been rambling for, almost an hour and a half. So here's a little story I want to share with you about my great aunt. So the story was, I used to go up to northern Michigan a lot by myself. And I would write in my group emails. I would talk to my grandmother and everyone else about my experience in northern Michigan. My grandmother wrote back to me and said, you should go to, your great aunt and uncle's house. They would love to see you. So reluctantly, I did go see them. And they said some of the most hideous bullshit ever. So this is what happened. My great aunt. So it was 2008, I believe. My great aunt and uncle we were discussing politics, unfortunately. And so what happens is they asked me, so who are you going to vote for president? And I said, I'm aiming towards Obama. And they were like, oh, don't vote for him. The first time my dog barked at another dog all day. Pretty slow day at the park. My aunt, so this is what happened. They were like, oh, don't vote for him. He's going to be like Kwame. Oh, don't do that. And at the same time, Kwame Kilpatrick, he was the mayor of Detroit. He got busted for all kinds of shit. Ended up going to jail. And, Obama became the best president I had during my lifetime at the time. He was a phenomenon. Yes, was he perfect? No. Was he a true progressive? Far from it. But he did improve healthcare. He improved the economy big time. The economy, bounced back under him. He captured Osama, which was the best part. Too bad he didn't end the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was nowhere near Kwame. Kwame and Obama were two different people. And guess who freed Kwame Kilpatrick from jail? Back in 2020. Oh my! It was Trump! He commuted his sentence. And I think he did it to punish the people of Detroit for not supporting him. I'll never understand Donald Trump. And, it was like, I'm happy to see so many people who supported him for president finally waking up to the realization that he is a bad human being. He, gas prices were supposed to go down. The economy was supposed to improve. And what happened to the Epstein files? Beats me. Well, maybe he'll get his little ballroom. So that way he doesn't have to be a part of another assassination attempt. Man. All I can say is, come on, November. Come a little faster, will ya? I'm getting tired of, even better, January of next year. So all these new people can get elected, into office, and we can have some sanctity back into politics. Come on, hurry up. Andale, hurry up. Okay. I gotta get going. So, good day and good luck. Enjoy the sunshine. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.